He held her neck, and the wine glass shattered against mahogany. Red liquid spread across the 12-foot table like blood, staining the white. Linen, dripping onto Italian leather shoes worth more than most people's rent. Nobody moved. The crystal chandelier above swayed slightly, catching the flicker of candles that lined the Vaughan Estate's private dining hall. Zafira's hand froze mid-pour. Does she even speak English? The voice came from the left side of the table, smooth and cold like silk wrapped around a blade. A woman in emerald draped across her collarbone, diamonds catching light with every breath. Laughter rippled through the room. Soft at first, then louder. Zafira kept her eyes down. The bottle in her hand, 1945 Mouton Rothschild, worth $18,000, felt heavier now. Her uniform, pressed black with white trim, suddenly felt too tight across her shoulders. She could feel their stares crawling over her skin, counting the threads in her apron, measuring the scuff marks on her shoes. Must have pulled her off some shelter steps. Another voice. Male this time. Smoke and bourbon coating every syllable. Hi viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Thunder cracked outside the estate windows. Rain hammered against glass that stretched from floor to ceiling, 14 feet. High, overlooking gardens that cost more to maintain than entire neighborhoods. The storm had rolled in an hour ago, turning the sky black despite it only being 7 in the evening. Zafira moved to the next guest, her hands steady now. Years of practice, years of surviving rooms exactly like this one. She'd learned early, in places built by powerful men, the invisible live longest. Careful, darling. A woman's voice dripped honey and poison in equal measure. That wine costs more than she'll make in a lifetime. More laughter. Zafira's reflection caught in the polished surface of a serving tray. Dark skin, hair pulled back tight enough to hurt. Eyes that had seen too much and said nothing. She looked away. At the head of the table, Luca Vaughan sat motionless. The man who owned this estate, this city, possibly half the judges and politicians in the state, didn't laugh. Didn't smile, didn't even blink. His fingers, wrapped around a glass of scotch he hadn't touched all night, turned white at the knuckles. Tell me, sweetheart. The emerald woman leaned back in her chair, swirling wine in her glass. Does he let you eat at the table, or do you lick the crumbs off the floor when we leave? The room erupted. Men in custom suits slapped the table. Women in dresses that cost more than cars covered their mouths, shoulders shaking. One man's laugh turned into a cough, champagne going down wrong. Zafira's hand trembled. Just once. A single shake that made the wine bottle tap against crystal. Luca saw it. His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his cheek. His eyes, dark and unreadable, tracked every movement in the room like a predator counting prey. Rania, you're terrible. Another woman, older, pearls stacked 3 deep around her throat. But she was smiling. They were all smiling. Zafira moved to refill the next glass. Her feet silent against marble floors that reflected everything. The chandelier, the guests, her own shadow stretched long and thin. She'd walked these floors for 6 years. Knew every inch, every crack, every place where the light hit different in the morning. 6 years of carrying trays. 6 years of lowering her head. 6 years of listening to people who thought money made them gods. Someone should teach her to curtsy properly. A man with silver hair and a watch that could fund a small school spoke without looking up from his phone. If she's going to serve in a house like this, oh, Robert, stop. But the woman who said it was still laughing. Thunder rolled again. Closer this time. Zafira reached the fireplace where extra bottles waited on a brass cart. Her back to the table now. She took a breath, counted to 5, the way her mother taught her, before her mother stopped. Breathing in a hospital waiting room, they were too poor to enter. Behind her, the conversation shifted. Politics, stocks, someone's yacht getting delayed, problems that weren't problems, complaints wrapped in $100 words. She turned back toward the table. That's when she saw him. Luca's eyes locked on hers. Just for a second, less than a second. But in that brief connection, something passed between them. Something the guests in their designer clothes and borrowed importance couldn't see. Recognition. The kind that comes from shared survival. From understanding what it means to owe someone your life. Zafira looked away first. She always did. A knock echoed through the hall. Sharp, deliberate. 3 times against the main entrance doors that sat 30 feet away, carved oak with iron handles shaped like wolves. Every head turned. Expecting someone else, Luca? The man with the expensive watch raised an eyebrow. Luca stood slowly. His chair scraped against marble. The sound cut through conversation like a knife. No, one word, delivered flat. Final. He buttoned his suit jacket, charcoal grey, perfectly tailored, and walked toward the entrance. His footsteps measured, controlled. The kind of walk that made people step aside without being asked. The guests exchanged glances. Curious, slightly nervous. The kind of nervous that comes when you remember the man feeding you dinner could make you disappear without a trace. Zafira stayed by the fireplace, the bottle still in her hands. Rain streaked down the windows now, distorting the view of gardens and gates beyond. Luca reached the doors, his hand on the iron handle. He paused, turned his head slightly toward the dining table, toward Zafira, standing alone by the fire. Zafira. His voice carried through the hall despite not being raised. Stay right here. What would you do if the most powerful person in the room suddenly noticed you existed? Drop a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This story is just getting started. Chapter 2. The black car appeared on a Tuesday. Zafira noticed it first through the laundromat window, parked across the street under a broken streetlight that hadn't worked in 3 years. Tinted windows, engine running, exhaust curling into cold air like smoke from a dragon's mouth. She folded another towel, white, bleach-stained, the kind motels bought in bulk and threw away when they got too grey. It was 3 in the morning. The laundromat hummed around her, fluorescent lights flickering every few minutes, casting shadows that moved when nothing else did. She'd been here since 11, washing linens for $2 a load, sleeping in the back room behind dryer number 7 when the owner wasn't around. The car didn't move. Zafira kept folding. She'd learned young, in the 9th ward, you survived by not seeing things, by keeping your head down, by making yourself so small that trouble passed right over you looking for someone bigger, louder, easier to catch. 3 weeks ago, she'd made a mistake. She'd looked up. The alley behind Tremy's old jazz club had been dark, the kind of dark where streetlights gave up, and even the rats moved careful. She'd been cutting through after her shift at the diner, apron still greasy, tips jingling in her pocket, $43, enough for next week's propane. That's when she heard it, a sound between a groan and a gasp, wet, desperate. She should have kept walking. Should have pretended her ears were as broken as that streetlight. Should have done what every survival instinct screamed at her to do. But she didn't. She found him slumped against a dumpster, one hand pressed to his stomach, blood seeping between fingers that wore rings worth more than her entire life. His shirt, white, expensive, was ruined. His face, half in shadow, was going pale. Hey! Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Hey! Can you hear me? His eyes found hers, dark, focused despite the blood loss. He tried to speak, coughed instead. Zafira dropped to her knees. The alley concrete was wet. She didn't think about what the wetness was. Didn't think about anything except the CNA training she'd scraped together money for, sitting in community college classrooms that smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. Don't move. She ripped off her apron, clean side down, pressed it against the wound. Where's your phone? No. The word came out sharp, clear. No hospitals, no police. You're bleeding out. No cops. His hand, the one not holding his gut together, grabbed her wrist. Strong grip for a dying man. You call them, we both die. Zafira's heart hammered. She looked around. The alley was empty. No witnesses, no cameras, Just her and this stranger who wore death like an expensive cologne. She made a choice. For the next 40 minutes, she worked. Used the apron to pack the wound. Elevated his legs with her backpack. Kept pressure constant while he faded in and out. Talked to him. Kept him conscious. Used everything she'd learned in that classroom. Every skill she'd practiced on plastic dummies that didn't bleed real blood. What's your name? She asked it to keep him awake, not because she cared. Doesn't matter. You got people? Someone who can help? He laughed. Wet sound. Bad sign. Too many people. The bleeding slowed. Not stopped, but slower. Enough that he wasn't dying right this second. Enough that Zafira started thinking about exit strategies. You need a hospital. I need you to forget you saw me. His eyes locked on hers again. Even bleeding out, he looked at her like he was memorizing her face. Go home. Pretend this didn't happen. You'll die. Maybe. He shifted, winced. But you'll live. Zafira stood. Her hands were covered in his blood. Her jeans soaked through. She looked down at this stranger who'd just given her permission to walk away. She walked away, made it 3 steps before she stopped, turned back around, pulled out her phone, cracked screen, prepaid minutes, and called the one person she knew who asked no questions. Andre, her mother's cousin's boyfriend, former paramedic, current dealer. He owed her family something from way back. I need help, not hospitals, not cops. Can you do that? 15 minutes later, Andre showed up with a medical kit that looked too professional for someone who wasn't supposed to have one. He took one look at the man, whistled low. Girl, you know who this is? No, keep it that way. Andre worked fast, cleaned the wound, stitched it, bandaged it proper, and if anyone asks, nobody asks. Zafira was already backing away. The man caught her eye one last time before she left. Thank you. 2 words. That's all he gave her. Zafira ran. Now, 3 weeks later, the black car sat outside the laundromat like a promise somebody was keeping. She finished folding the last towel, placed it in the basket, her movements slow, careful, like sudden motion might trigger something. The car door opened. A man stepped out, tall, dark suit despite the hour. He looked both ways, crossed the street, pushed open the laundromat door. The bell above it chimed, cheerful sound in a situation that wasn't. He walked straight to her, stopped 3 feet away, close enough to speak quiet, too close to run. Zafira Riley? She didn't answer, didn't move. You helped someone 3 weeks ago. Behind Trems, her stomach dropped. He wants to thank you properly. The man reached into his jacket. Zafira's hand found the folding knife in her pocket. 5-inch blade, dull but sharp enough. The man pulled out an envelope. Plain, white. Her name written across it in handwriting too neat to be rushed. He'll be in touch. The man set the envelope on the folding table, turned, walked out. The bell chimed again. The car pulled away. Zafira stared at the envelope for a full minute before touching it. Inside, a phone number, nothing else. No name, no explanation. Just 10 digits that felt heavier than they should. She burned it in the sink. Went home to the efficiency apartment she shared with 2 other girls who worked nights. Showered, tried to sleep. Failed. The next day, a different car appeared. Day after that, another. They didn't approach, didn't threaten, just watched. Zafira kept working, kept moving, kept pretending she didn't notice. 2 days later, he showed up himself. She was walking home from her shift at the diner, cutting through the same streets she always cut through because routine was safety. The sun was setting, painting the 9th ward in orange and shadow. A car pulled up beside her. Not black this time, silver. Expensive enough to not belong here, but not so expensive it screamed. The window rolled down. The man from the alley sat in the back seat, alive, healthy, wearing a charcoal coat and a silver tie that probably cost more than her rent. Get in. No, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm telling you, the alternatives are worse. Zafira kept walking. The car kept pace. You saved my life. That makes you valuable. And in my world, valuable things get collected. By me, or by people who'll use you to hurt me. She stopped walking. He continued. Come work for me. You'll live better than you ever have. Safe, fed, protected. Or I can owe you. And my enemies will collect your payment in blood. Zafira looked at him through the car window, saw the truth in his eyes, the kind of truth that doesn't negotiate. She got in the car. 3 hours later, she stood in the entrance hall of the Vaughan estate. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, windows that stretched toward ceilings she couldn't see. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform looked her up and down, disapproval carved into every line of her face. She'll need training. The woman spoke to Luca like Zafira wasn't there. Proper training. Then train her. Luca turned to leave, stopped, looked back at Zafira. You saved my life. I don't forget debts. He walked away. The housekeeper grabbed Zafira's arm. Follow me. And don't touch anything. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of carrying trays and lowering her head. 6 years of watching powerful people play games with other people's lives. 6 years of surviving. But Zafira learned something in those 6 years. The invisible see everything. And what she saw in the Vaughan estate, the meetings, the whispers, the envelopes, exchanged in hallways, taught her more about power than any classroom ever could. She learned who owed what, who feared who, which smiles were real, and which ones hid knives. She learned that Luca Vaughan never touched her because he understood something. Most powerful men didn't. Respect earned was stronger than fear forced. And she learned one more thing. The night the FBI raided the estate, 5 years back, agents swarming through, gates, warrants in hand, she'd been mopping the second-floor hallway, heard them coming, saw Luca standing in his study, papers spread across his desk, damning evidence that would bury him. She'd walked in without knocking. They're looking for the ledgers. 3rd floor. Northwest office. Luca looked at her. There's nothing on the 3rd floor. There is now. She'd placed a box on his desk. Similar size. Similar weight. I moved them this morning, put these in their place. Old tax records from 3 years ago. Legal. Boring. Exactly what they'll waste time searching through. Why? You gave me a choice when you didn't have to. She turned to leave. Consider us even. The FBI found nothing. The case fell apart. Luca never mentioned it again, neither did she. But something changed after that night. The way he looked at her. The way he listened when she was in the room. Like he'd finally seen what everyone else missed. That she wasn't just surviving. She was watching. Now, standing in the dining hall with thunder rolling outside, and guests who thought cruelty was entertainment, Zafira held her bottle of wine and waited. Because she'd learned one more thing in 6 years. Powerful men protected what they valued. And Luca Vaughan was done pretending she wasn't valuable. The main doors swung open. Rain poured in. Cold air rushed through the hall. A man stood in the doorway, soaked, breathing hard. Sir, his voice urgent, we have a situation. Have you ever helped someone who changed your life forever? Comment below and hit subscribe. The next chapter gets darker. The estate walls swallowed sound. Zafira learned that, her first week, thick stone, imported from somewhere in Europe where old money built castles instead of mansions. You could scream on the 3rd floor and nobody on the 1st would hear. She tested it once. Late night, empty hallway, just to know. Now she moved through those halls like a ghost. 5 in the morning. The other staff wouldn't arrive for another hour. Just her and the silence and the leftover smell of last night's dinner. Wine and expensive meat and perfume that cost more per ounce than groceries cost per week. She collected glasses from the side tables in the library. Crystal, heavy, each one worth enough to make her stomach tight when she carried them. The guests had left around midnight. Luca disappeared with the soaked man who'd burst through the doors. The dinner ended without dessert, without explanation, just Rania Eldridge and her emerald dress sweeping out first, followed. By the others, whispers trailing behind them like expensive scarves. Zafira had cleaned in silence while they gathered coats and called drivers. Nobody looked at her. They never did. She carried the glasses toward the kitchen, her footsteps quiet on marble. That reflected the morning light starting to creep through eastern windows. The estate was different in these hours, softer, less like a showpiece and more like a building that breathed. In the main hallway, she paused. Luca's study door stood open, just slightly, enough to see shadows moving inside, hear voices too low to make out words. She should have kept walking. She didn't. Zafira set the glasses on a hall table, moved closer. Not close enough to be seen, just close enough to hear. Can't be sure it's connected. A male voice. Not Luca. One of his advisors. Vincent something. She'd served him coffee enough times to recognize the rasp of too many cigars. 3 warehouses don't burn by accident. Luca's voice. Calm. The kind of calm that made smart people nervous. Not in the same night. Not all hours. The senator laughs at my table while his people burn my property. A pause. That's a message. What do you want to do? Silence. Long enough that Zafira thought maybe they'd stop talking. Then Luca spoke again. Find out who gave the order. Not the senator. He's too careful. Someone under him. Someone who thinks they're untouchable. And when we find them, we'll discuss options. Footsteps moved toward the door. Zafira was already gone. Down the hall. Through the kitchen entrance. Back to her glasses, like she'd never stopped moving. Her heart pounded. Not from fear. From the information now sitting in her head like a live wire. She'd heard things before. Pieces of conversations. Names dropped in hallways. But this was different. This was Luca letting someone see his anger. Letting it show enough to plan retaliation, which meant things were worse than he was pretending. Zafira washed the glasses, dried them, put them away in cabinets that required a step stool to reach. The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner, and the bread dough the cook would start when she arrived at 6. The other maids came in at 7. Teresa first, older woman, worked the estate for 15 years. She moved slow but thorough, her hands weathered from decades of scrubbing floors for people who didn't know her name. Morning. Teresa set down her bag, looked at Zafira. You were at the dinner last night. Not a question. Yeah. How bad? Zafira shrugged. Same as always. Teresa made a sound in her throat. Rich folks got nothing better to do than make themselves feel bigger by making us feel small. She tied on her apron. You hear about the fires? Zafira kept her face neutral. What fires? 3 warehouses, down by the port. All owned by Mr. Vaughan's shipping company. Cops calling it arson, but nobody's saying who did it. When? Last night, while that fancy dinner was happening. Teresa pulled out cleaning supplies. Timing's funny, don't you think? Funny wasn't the word Zafira would use. 2 more maids arrived. Carmen and Dia. Both younger, both new within the last year. They whispered between themselves, shooting glances at Zafira like she might bite. She'd heard the rumors they spread, about her, about why Luca kept her on when she didn't smile enough, didn't flirt, didn't play the games some of the male guests expected. The rumors said she was sleeping with him. The rumors were wrong, but rumors didn't care about truth. They cared about filling silence with something juicy enough to chew on. Carmen moved past her to get to the supply closet, close enough to speak quiet. Must be nice, having protection. Zafira didn't respond. Some of us have to actually work for our place here. Carmen's voice had edges, sharp ones. But I guess if you're willing to do certain things. Carmen. Teresa's voice cut through. That's enough. Carmen smiled. Sweet. Poison underneath. Just saying what everyone's thinking. She walked away. Zafira's hands tightened around the dish towel she was holding. She counted to 10, then 20, then stopped counting and focused on breathing instead. This was survival too. Different kind. Same rules. Stay quiet. Stay small. Let them think what they want. because changing their minds cost energy she couldn't afford to spend. The day moved forward. Zafira cleaned the dining hall, polished silver, vacuumed carpets thick enough to swallow sound. Every movement practiced. Efficient. The kind of efficiency that came from doing the same tasks hundreds of times until your body remembered and your mind could wander. She thought about the fires, about the senator, about Rania Eldridge's floor comment, and the laughter that followed. Powerful people played games. The rest of them were just pieces on the board. Around 3 in the afternoon, she was dusting the second-floor hallway when she heard it. Voices, coming from Luca's private office at the end of the hall. Not his study. His office, the one only his closest people entered. The door was closed, but not all the way. Zafira moved closer. Not intentional. Just her cleaning path happened to lead that direction. Proof. Luca's voice. Security footage from the port. Deleted, but we recovered it. Another man. Sounded like Marco, Luca's head of security, ex-military. Moved like it. Shows 2 men, both wearing Senator Eldridge's campaign jackets. Silence. Then Luca spoke. Quieter now. Dangerous quiet. His wife sits at my table, laughs, drinks my wine, while he burns my warehouses. What's the play? Nothing yet. He's expecting retaliation. Give him nothing. Let him wonder. And the wife. Rania's useful. She doesn't know what her husband does, probably doesn't care. But she talks, and when she talks, people listen. Footsteps approach the door. Zafira was already moving. Down the hall. Into a side room used for storage. She ducked inside, left the door cracked. Marco emerged first. Then Luca. They walked past her hiding spot without looking. What about the girl? Marco asked. Zafira's breath stopped. What about her? She was there last night. Heard the guests. Saw everything. She's worked here 6 years. You think she doesn't already know how things operate? I think she's smart. Maybe too smart. Marco's voice dropped. People who see too much become liabilities, or assets. They turned a corner. Voices fading. Zafira stayed in the storage room, her heart hammering against ribs that suddenly felt too tight. Liability. The word sat in her chest like a stone. She'd saved Luca's life twice. Once in an alley. Once during an FBI raid she'd helped derail. But gratitude had limits, especially in a world where loyalty was purchased and debts were collected in blood. She waited 5 minutes, then 10, then slipped out of the storage room and finished her cleaning route like nothing happened. That evening, she returned to her room. Small space, 3rd floor, servants' quarters, single bed, dresser, window that looked out over the back gardens. She'd made it hers over 6 years. Photos of her mother on the dresser, books from the estate library that she'd never returned, a blanket her grandmother made before the flood took everything. She locked the door, something she rarely did, sat on the bed, pulled out the small notebook she kept hidden under the mattress. Inside, names, dates, fragments of conversations, things she'd heard over 6 years that seemed important even when she didn't understand why. She added today's information, the fires, the senator, the security footage. Then she stared at the entry she'd made 5 years ago, the night of the FBI raid. She'd written down everything, the agents' names, the warrant details, the way Luca had looked at her afterward, like he'd seen something he didn't expect. She'd written one more thing, a question she'd never answered. Why does he really keep me here? Because it wasn't gratitude. Gratitude ran out. Gratitude got spent like currency until the debt cleared. This was something else. Zafira closed the notebook, slid it back under the mattress, stood and walked to the window. The gardens below stretched dark and perfect. Hedges trimmed exact. Flowers arranged by color. Everything controlled. Everything deliberate. She saw movement near the east gate. 2 men. One of them, Luca. The other, she didn't recognize. They stood close, speaking. The stranger handed Luca something. An envelope, maybe. Too dark to tell. Then the stranger left. Luca stayed, standing alone in the garden, looking up, directly at her window. Zafira stepped back, into shadow. Had he seen her? Did he know she watched? She waited, heart pounding, ready to pretend she'd been doing something else. Anything else. But Luca just stood there, then turned and walked back toward the main house. Zafira sat on her bed, replayed the moment in her head. The way he'd looked up, the way he'd paused, like he expected her to be there, like he wanted her to be watching. 2 days later, she was dusting the third-floor study when she found it. The room wasn't used often. Books nobody read, furniture nobody sat on. She cleaned it twice a week out of routine more than necessity. On the desk, a folder, plain manila, no labels. She should have ignored it. She opened it instead. Inside, photographs, security photos, surveillance images from around the estate. And there, in the third photo, was her, standing in the hallway outside Luca's study. The night of the FBI raid, someone had drawn a red circle around her head. Zafira's hands went cold. She flipped to the next photo. Her again. Different angle, different day, another red circle. 5 photos total. All her. All circled. At the bottom of the folder, a handwritten note. Verify loyalty. Confirm intelligence. Monitor closely. Luca's handwriting. She'd seen it enough times to recognize it. Zafira closed the folder, put it back exactly where she found it. Finished dusting the room on autopilot. Left. She made it to the servants' stairwell before her legs gave out. Sat on the steps, breathing hard, mind racing. He'd been watching her, tracking her, testing her, maybe. For 5 years, since the FBI raid. She wasn't just a maid. She was being evaluated. For what? Footsteps echoed below. Someone climbing the stairs. Zafira stood, smoothed her uniform, composed her face into the mask she wore every day, neutral, invisible, forgettable. The person rounded the corner. Luca. He stopped when he saw her. Neither spoke for a moment that stretched too long. Then Luca moved past her, close enough that she smelled his cologne, expensive, subtle. He paused on the step above. You're careful. He didn't look at her. That's good. He continued up the stairs. Zafira stood frozen. That night, she couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every glance, every moment over 6 years that suddenly meant something different. He knew she listened, knew she watched, knew she was smarter than she pretended. And instead of seeing her as a threat, he saw her as something else, an asset. Marco's word, Luca's confirmation. The question was, asset for what? 3 days passed. Routine continued, cleaning, serving, existing in spaces between visibility and invisibility. Then the invitation came. Not for her, for the estate. Luca was hosting another dinner, bigger this time. 5 elite families, politicians, CEOs, people whose names appeared in newspapers and campaign contributions. The head housekeeper called a staff meeting. This is important. Her voice sharp. Everything must be perfect. No mistakes, no oversights. She looked directly at Zafira. You'll be serving the main dining hall, alongside Teresa. Zafira nodded, but her stomach twisted, because serving meant being visible, being in the room when powerful people spoke freely, because they'd stopped seeing staff as human enough to matter. It meant hearing things, and Luca knew she heard things, which meant this wasn't random assignment. This was deliberate. After the meeting, Zafira found Teresa in the kitchen. You ever serve these kinds of dinners before? Teresa measured coffee grounds, didn't look up. Couple times. When they needed extra hands. What are they like? Ruthless. Teresa poured water. They smile and shake hands and make deals that ruin lives. Then they go home and sleep fine because money makes comfortable pillows. What should I know? Teresa finally looked at her. Really looked. like she was seeing something she hadn't noticed before. Keep your head down, don't react to anything they say, and whatever you hear, forget it the second you leave the room. Why? Because the people who remember too much don't last long in houses like this. The dinner was scheduled for Saturday, 3 days away. Zafira spent those days preparing, learning which guests drank what, which ones had dietary restrictions, which ones tipped, and which ones snapped fingers like staff were dogs. She also learned something else. One of the confirmed guests was Senator James Eldridge, Ranya's husband, the man whose campaign jackets showed up on security footage the night Luca's warehouses burned. He was coming to dinner, at Luca's table. 2 days before the dinner, Zafira was changing linens in one of the guest rooms when Carmen appeared in the doorway. "You nervous?" Zafira didn't answer. "I would be. If I were you." Carmen leaned against the doorframe. Serving a dinner like that, all those important people watching, judging, one mistake and… She snapped her fingers. "What do you want, Carmen?" "Just wondering if you've thought about what you'll do." After what?" "After Mr. Vaughan gets tired of whatever arrangement you two have." Carmen smiled. "Men like him get bored. And when they do, they replace things." Zafira turned back to the bed. Tucked in the sheets with hospital corners, her CNA training taught her. "You should worry about your own job. I'm not the one playing dangerous games." Carmen left, but her words stuck, because she was right about one thing. Luca was playing a game, and Zafira was a piece on the board. The question was, which piece? And what happened when the game ended? Saturday arrived. The estate transformed. Florists brought arrangements that cost more than cars. The kitchen staff worked double shifts. Security swept every room, every corner, every possible entry point. Zafira dressed in her best uniform. Pressed, clean, professional. She studied herself in the mirror. Same face she'd had 6 years ago, but different eyes. Older, harder. The kind of eyes that had seen too much and learned to hide what they'd seen. She went downstairs. The dining hall gleamed. Crystal, silver. Candles already lit, despite the sun still being up. Teresa was already there, checking place settings, adjusting angles. "Ready?" Zafira nodded, but her hands were shaking. Just slightly, just enough. Because tonight wasn't just another dinner. Tonight was something else. She could feel it in the air. In the way Luca had looked at her that morning when she'd passed him in the hall. In the weight of the silence that followed. The guests would arrive at 7. It was 6:30 now. 30 minutes until everything changed. The main doors opened. Early arrival. Zafira turned. A woman stepped through. Tall, elegant, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Zafira made in a year. She recognized the face immediately. Rania Eldridge, the woman who'd asked if maids licked crumbs off the floor. Ranya's eyes swept the room, landed on Zafira. She smiled. "Oh good. You're here. Ever had someone underestimate you right before you proved them wrong? Drop a comment and subscribe." The wine bottle was missing. Zafira noticed it immediately. The brass cart by the fireplace held 7 bottles, all carefully selected, all arranged by vintage and price. But the space where the 1,945 Mouton Rothschild should have sat gaped empty. $18,000 worth of wine, gone. She checked the inventory list clipped to the cart. Her handwriting, clear, specific. She'd placed that bottle there herself 2 hours ago. Teresa appeared at her elbow. Problem? The Rothschild. It was right here. Teresa's eyebrows pulled together. "You sure?" "I checked it 3 times. They both knew what missing expensive things meant in a house like this. Questions, accusations, someone getting blamed whether they did it or not. "I'll check the wine cellar." Teresa moved fast for someone her age. "Keep setting up. Guests arrive in 20 minutes. Zafira returned to the table. Adjusted napkins folded into swans. Polished water glasses that didn't need polishing. Her mind ran calculations. Where the bottle went. Who had access. whether this was accident or something else. The main doors opened again. More guests this time. A couple. The man wore a suit that probably cost what Zafira used to make in 6 months. The woman dripped diamonds from her ears, her throat, her wrists. They looked around the dining hall like they owned it. Maybe they did. Rich people owned things normal people didn't even know were for sale. Lucas outdone himself. The woman's voice carried. High, nasal. I haven't seen the Bellamont chandelier lit in years. The man grunted, pulled out his phone. Zafira moved to greet them. May I take your coats? The woman looked through her. Not at her. Through her. Like Zafira was glass. Where's the regular girl? The one who actually speaks clearly? She's preparing the kitchen, ma'am. I can help. Never mind. The woman walked past her. Diamonds, catching light, leaving a trail of perfume that smelled like old money and new cruelty. The man followed, didn't even glance her direction. Zafira hung their coats anyway. Cashmere, silk lining, labels she didn't recognize but knew were expensive because everything in this house was expensive. More arrivals. A younger couple, mid-30s. Tech money based on their casual designer clothes and the way they looked around like they were slumming. This is what old money looks like. The woman whispered to her husband. Loud whisper, meant to be overheard, trying so hard to be European. The wine's probably good though. They laughed. Zafira kept her face neutral, took their coats, directed them to the pre-dinner reception in the East Parlor, where champagne and conversation flowed in equal measure. Teresa returned, empty-handed, slightly out of breath. It's not in the cellar. Where else would it be? I don't know. But we have a bigger problem. Teresa lowered her voice. Mr. Vaughan specifically requested that bottle for tonight, for a toast. Zafira's stomach dropped. A missing bottle was one thing. A missing bottle Luca specifically wanted was something else entirely. Did you tell him? Not yet. I thought maybe. Teresa stopped mid-sentence. Luca entered the dining hall. He moved, like he always did. Controlled, deliberate. Every step calculated. He wore charcoal grey tonight. Perfect fit. Silver cufflinks that caught the chandelier light. His eyes swept the room. Checking. Always checking. They landed on Zafira. She felt the weight of that look. Brief but complete. Like he could read her inventory just by standing there. He walked toward them. Teresa straightened. Sir, the senators arrived early. Luca's voice was quiet, almost conversational, with his wife. They're in the East Parlor, making friends they don't have. He paused, looked at the wine cart, looked back at Zafira. Something wrong? Teresa opened her mouth. Zafira spoke first. The 1945 Rothschild isn't where I placed it. Missing? Yes, sir. Luca's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Quick. Gone before Zafira could name it. When did you last see it? 2 hours ago. I placed it on the cart myself. Checked the seal. Everything was correct. Who's had access to this room since then? Just staff. And the early arrivals? Luca nodded slowly. Finish preparations. Use the 1947 Latour for the toast instead. But sir, you specifically... I know what I asked for. He turned to leave. Stopped. And Zafira? Yes, sir. Pay attention tonight. More than usual. He walked away. Teresa exhaled. What does that mean? Zafira didn't answer, because she was starting to understand something. The missing bottle wasn't an accident. It was a test. 30 minutes later, the dining hall filled. 12 guests total. 6 couples. Each one representing power in different forms, political, financial, technological. They moved through the room like sharks circling prey, smiling with teeth too white to be real. Senator James Eldridge stood near the fireplace. Tall man, silver hair, face that belonged on campaign posters. He laughed at something someone said, his hand resting possessively on Ranya's lower back. Ranya wore emerald again. Different dress, same color. like she'd claimed it as her signature. She caught Zafira's eye across the room, smiled, the kind of smile that promised nothing good. Luca entered last, drew every eye without trying. He greeted guests by name, shook hands, played the host role with practiced ease. But Zafira watched his face, the micro-expressions most people missed, the slight tightening around his eyes when he shook the senator's hand, the pause, just a fraction of a second, before he returned Ranya's greeting. He was angry, hiding it perfectly, but angry. "Ladies and gentlemen," Luca's voice carried through the hall. "Please, be seated." The guests moved to the table, found their name cards, settled into chairs that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Zafira and Teresa took their positions, ready to serve. Luca sat at the head, Senator Eldridge to his right, Rania to his left. Strategic placement, enemies close, closer than friends. The first course came, oysters on ice, champagne in crystal flutes. Conversation flowed, safe topics, weather, travel, someone's new yacht stuck in customs. Zafira poured wine, moved between chairs, invisible again. "Tell me, Luca." The senator's voice boomed, practiced politician volume. "How's the shipping business? I heard you had some trouble down at the port." The table went quiet, just for a second. Then the tech CEO's wife laughed. "James, we're at dinner. No business talk." Of course. But the senator was smiling. "Just making conversation." Luca sipped his champagne. "The shipping business is resilient. A few small fires won't slow progress." "Small fires," the senator repeated. "That's one way to put it." Rania touched her husband's arm. "Darling, you promised." "You're right. My apologies." The senator raised his glass. "To good company and better wine." Everyone drank. Zafira refilled glasses. Noticed the senator's wedding ring. Gold, engraved with something she couldn't read from this angle. She also noticed his shoes. Expensive. Italian, with a small scuff on the left heel. The second course arrived. Lobster bisque. More wine. The tech couple dominated conversation now, talking about artificial intelligence like it was a pet they'd trained, their words full of jargon and self-importance. Rania looked bored. She turned her attention to the woman across from her, older, pearls, stacked 3 deep old money written in every line of her face. "Margaret, that necklace is stunning. Is it new?" "Oh, this?" Margaret touched the pearls. "Family heirloom. Been in the Ashford line for 6 generations. How fortunate to have history." Something sharp lived under Ranya's words, like she was filing the comment for later use. Zafira moved to refill the senator's water glass. He didn't acknowledge her, just kept talking to the man on his right about poll numbers and district lines. But as she poured, his hand shifted, knocked his napkin to the floor. Clumsy of me. He didn't look at her, just gestured down. Zafira set the water pitcher on the serving cart, bent to retrieve the napkin. As she did, the senator leaned down slightly, pretending to see where the napkin fell. His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. "You people are always underfoot." Zafira's hand closed around the napkin. She stood, placed it beside his plate, face neutral. "Will that be all, sir?" He waved her away, returned to his conversation like nothing happened. But Zafira's hands shook as she moved to the next guest. "You people." 2 words, carrying generations of contempt. She glanced at Luca. He was watching the senator, eyes dark, unreadable. Had he heard? The third course, lamb, roasted vegetables, a burgundy that cost more than Zafira made in a month. The tech CEO's husband launched into a story about their recent trip to Monaco. Every sentence dripped with casual wealth, private jets, celebrity encounters, hotels that required membership to even know existed. His wife interrupted with corrections, small ones, details that didn't matter but made her feel important to share. They fed off each other's pretension like it was oxygen. Across the table, a younger guest, couldn't be older than 30, scrolled his phone under the table, barely participating. Bored despite sitting at a table most people would kill to access. Privilege made gratitude optional. Rania leaned toward Luca, close enough that her perfume must have reached him. "You've been quiet tonight. That's unlike you." "Just enjoying the company." Luca's tone was smooth, empty. "And the conversation, liar." But she was smiling. "You're thinking about something. I can always tell. Can you?" "I'm very good at reading people." She sipped her wine. "It's a survival skill, especially in my world." "Your world being?" "Rooms full of powerful men who think women are decorative." "And are you decorative?" Rania's smile sharpened. "What do you think?" Luca didn't answer, just turned his attention to the senator. "James, your wife is far too perceptive." The senator laughed. "Big sound. Performative. That she is. Keeps me honest." "Does she now?" Something passed between them. Unspoken. Heavy. The rest of the table didn't notice. Too busy with their own conversations, their own small dramas played out over expensive food. Zafira refilled wineglasses. Noticed everything. The way the tech wife's hand trembled slightly when she drank. The way the young man checked his phone every 30 seconds. The way Margaret kept adjusting her pearls like they were choking her. Rich people had problems too, just wrapped in better packaging. Teresa appeared at her elbow, whispered, "Dessert's ready, 5 minutes." Zafira nodded. The table conversation shifted again. Someone brought up politics, dangerous territory. But these people thrived on danger. "The immigration bill is a disaster." The tech CEO leaned back. "We need workers, but the optics are terrible." "Optics?" The senator's voice dripped disdain. "That's the problem with your generation. Everything's optics, nothing's principle. Principle doesn't win elections, neither does alienating your base." The argument built, voices rising, not quite shouting, but close. Their wives exchanged glances, long-suffering looks that said this happened often. Luca let it continue, didn't intervene, just watched with that same dark expression. Then Rania spoke, voice cutting through. "Gentlemen, please. You're scaring the help." She gestured toward Zafira, standing by the serving cart, holding a wine bottle. Every head turned. 12 sets of eyes, studying her like she was an exhibit. Zafira's heart hammered, but her face stayed neutral. "She doesn't look scared to me." The tech wife sounded disappointed. "Well, she should be." Rania's smile had edges. "Working in a house like this, serving people like us. One mistake and—" She snapped her fingers. Poof, back to wherever she came from. The table laughed. Uncomfortable sound, but they laughed. Zafira didn't move, didn't react, just stood there, holding her bottle, being the thing they saw when they looked at her, invisible until they needed something to mock. Luca's glass hit the table, hard enough to make a sound. Conversation stopped. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Dessert's ready. Zafira, would you tell the kitchen we're prepared?" "Yes, sir." She left. Fast, professional, like her heart wasn't racing, like her hands weren't shaking, like she didn't feel their eyes burning into her back as she walked away. The kitchen was chaos, controlled chaos, but chaos. Staff plating desserts, chocolate arrangements that looked like art. Zafira delivered Luca's message, then stepped outside. The service entrance. Cold air. Rain had started again. Light drizzle that smelled like wet concrete and dying flowers. She breathed, counted, pushed down everything she was feeling. This was the job. This was survival. This was the choice she made 6 years ago when she got in Luca's car, instead of staying on streets that would have killed her eventually. But it didn't make it easier. The door opened behind her. "Teresa, you okay?" "Fine." "You don't look fine." Zafira didn't answer. Teresa stood beside her, silent for a moment. Then, "I've worked here 15 years, seen a lot of dinners, a lot of guests, a lot of cruelty dressed up as humor, and And I've never seen Mr. Vaughan look at someone the way he looked at you tonight. Zafira turned. What way? Like he was deciding something. Deciding what? Teresa shook her head. That's the question. They went back inside. Dessert service. Coffee. After dinner drinks. The guests loosened up. Wine and full bellies made them sloppy. Louder. More honest in their cruelty. One of the wives, couldn't remember which one, called Zafira over. Dear. Tell me. She was drunk. Words slurring slightly. Do you actually enjoy this? Serving us? It's my job, Ma'am. But, do you enjoy it? I'm grateful for the opportunity. The woman laughed. That's not what I asked. Her husband pulled her away. Apologized without meaning it. Zafira collected empty plates, moved through the room like water, flowing around obstacles, adapting to spaces. That's when she saw it. The senator, rising from his chair, excusing himself, heading toward the hallway. Alone. Zafira shouldn't have followed. She followed anyway, kept her distance, watched him turn left, toward the bathroom presumably, but he didn't stop at the bathroom. He continued down the hall, to Luca's study, tried the door, locked. He pulled something from his pocket, too far to see what. Worked on the lock for 30 seconds. The door opened. He went inside. Zafira's mind raced. She should get Luca, should get security, should do anything except what she was doing. She moved closer, quiet as she'd learned to be. The study door stood slightly open. Light spilled through the crack. She heard movement, papers rustling, drawers opening. He was searching for something. Zafira pulled out her phone, the one Luca had given her 3 years ago. Encrypted, emergency use only. She took photos through the crack. Quick, silent. The senator at Luca's desk, going through files. One photo captured his face clearly. Expression focused. Intense. Then he stopped, looked up, directly at the door. Zafira was already moving. Back down the hall, into the dining room, to her position by the serving cart. Heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The senator returned 2 minutes later, sat down, smiled at his wife, like nothing happened. Zafira's phone burned in her pocket. Evidence of something. She didn't know what yet, but she had it. The dinner wound down. Guests lingered, made promises to call, to meet, to continue conversations interrupted by time and alcohol limits. Luca walked them to the door, shook hands, played the perfect host. The senator was last to leave. He paused at the threshold, turned back. Luca, we should talk about business, about opportunities. Should we? I think there's money to be made. If we work together, I'll consider it. Luca's smile didn't reach his eyes. Give my regards to your campaign manager. Something flickered across the senator's face. Quick, gone. Of course. He left. Rania had already gone, drunk and loud and laughing about something that wasn't funny. The estate quieted. Staff began clean-up. Zafira was collecting wine glasses when Luca appeared beside her. She hadn't heard him approach. Walk with me. Not a request. She followed him through the hall, up the main staircase, to the 3rd floor, to his private office, the one only close people entered. He opened the door, gestured her inside. Zafira's mouth went dry. The office was smaller than the study, more personal. Books that looked read, papers that looked used. A desk covered in real work, not show. Luca closed the door behind them. Did you enjoy tonight's dinner? Strange question. She answered carefully. It's not my place to enjoy or not enjoy, sir. That's not what I asked. She met his eyes. No, I didn't enjoy it. Because they treated me like furniture, like something less than human. Luca nodded, moved to his desk, sat on the edge. The senator went into my study tonight. Not a question. A statement. Yes, sir. You saw him? Yes, sir. Did you take photos? Zafira's breath caught. How did he know? She pulled out her phone, showed him the images. Luca scrolled through them. Face unreadable. Then he looked up. You're smart, observant, careful. He set the phone down. That's why you're still alive. Sir? The bottle that went missing. The 1945 Rothschild. He paused. I took it this morning. Put it in the cellar. Different section. Why? To see what you'd do, how you'd react, whether you'd panic or adapt. That was a test? Everything's a test. Luca stood. And you passed. Zafira's mind spun. What's happening? War. He said it simply. The senator thinks he can take what's mine. Burn my warehouses, search my study, threaten my business. What are you going to do? Luca smiled. Not a nice smile. I'm going to show him the difference between power and influence. He walked to the door, opened it. Get some rest. Tomorrow starts early. Sir, he turned. Why did you really hire me? 6 years ago. Why me? Luca was quiet for a long moment. Because you saw me bleeding in an alley and didn't ask for payment. Didn't ask questions, just helped. He paused. And because people who help without expecting rewards are rare. Especially in my world. He left. Zafira stood in his office, alone, processing. She walked to the window, looked out over the estate grounds, saw a car pulling up to the front gate, black, unmarked. The gate opened. The car entered. 2 men got out, both wearing jackets that looked familiar. Campaign jackets. Senator Eldridge's campaign. Zafira grabbed her phone. Started recording. Have you ever witnessed something you weren't supposed to see? Comment what you do. The wine hit marble like a gunshot. Red liquid exploded across white stone, splashing up Zafira's uniform, soaking through fabric to skin underneath. Cold, wet, deliberate. She looked up. The senator's son stood over her, early 20s, drunk, wearing a smirk that matched his father's. Oops. He didn't sound sorry. How clumsy of me. Laughter erupted around the table. Not all of them, but enough. The tech CEO's wife covered her mouth. The young man with the phone actually looked up for once. Ranya's laugh cut through the rest. Hi. Delighted. Carter. You're terrible. What? It was an accident. He raised his hands in mock innocence. Right? More laughter. Zafira stood frozen. Wine dripped from her apron, from her sleeves, red stains spreading like blood across white fabric. She should have moved, should have grabbed a towel, should have done anything except stand there while 12 pairs of eyes measured her reaction. But her hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else, something that had been building all night. All 6 years, every insult swallowed, every laugh endured, every moment of being treated like furniture that breathed. Clean that up. Carter gestured at the floor. Before someone slips, Teresa appeared with towels. Fast, professional, but her eyes held murder when they met Zafira's. I've got this. Teresa's voice was low. Go change. Zafira didn't move, couldn't move. Because she was watching Luca. He sat at the head of the table. Hadn't said a word since the wine spilled. Hadn't moved. Hadn't even blinked. But his hand, the one wrapped around his own wine glass, had gone white at the knuckles. The tendons stood out like cables under skin. And his eyes, dark, fixed on Carter, measuring something the drunk kid was too stupid to see. Zafira. Teresa touched her arm. Go. This time she moved, down the hall, up the servants' stairs, to her room on the 3rd floor. She locked the door, stood in the middle of her small space, wine-soaked, shaking, breathing too fast. She counted to 10, then 20, then stopped counting because numbers weren't helping, changed out of the ruined uniform, scrubbed the wine off her skin. It left red marks anyway, like stigmata. Pulled on a fresh uniform from the closet. Her hands still shook as she buttoned it. A knock at the door. Zafira froze. Another knock. Insistent. She opened it. Teresa stood there, breathing hard like she'd run up the stairs. "He wants you back down there." "Who?" "Mr. Vaughan. He specifically asked for you." Zafira's stomach dropped. "Why?" "I don't know. But you better move fast." They went down together. Teresa in front, leading the way like a shield. The dining hall had shifted energy. Conversation still flowed, but quieter now, tense, like everyone was waiting for something without knowing what. Luca saw her enter, gestured her over. Zafira approached, every step measured, professional, like wine hadn't just been dumped on her deliberately. "Yes, sir." "Bring the dessert wine, the 1947 Latour." "Yes, sir." She moved to the wine cart, found the bottle. Heavy, old, worth more than most people made in 6 months, returned to the table. "Not yet." Luca stopped her. "I'll let you know when." Zafira stood there, holding the bottle, visible again. Carter glanced at her, smirked. His father, the senator, didn't even look, but Rania did. Her eyes tracked Zafira like a cat watching a mouse. Curious, predatory. "Luca, darling." Rania leaned forward, emerald dress catching candlelight. "This has been lovely, but I'm curious about something." "Oh?" "Your staff. They're very well trained, very obedient." She paused. "Do you train them yourself, or do they come that way?" The table went quiet. Luca sipped his water. "I don't train people, Rania. I hire carefully." Still, there's something to be said for discipline." Her eyes slid to Zafira. "For knowing one's place." "Indeed." Luca set down his glass. "Though I find place is often determined by intelligence rather than circumstance." What an egalitarian view. But Rania's smile had thorns. "Though I wonder if your staff shares it. Why don't we ask?" Luca turned slightly. "Zafira, do you feel you know your place?" 12 pairs of eyes swung toward her. The question was a trap. No matter how she answered. Say yes, confirm their view of her as less than. Say no, seem ungrateful, uppity, dangerous. But Luca's eyes held something else. A challenge maybe, or a test. She chose her words carefully. "I know my value, sir. Whether others recognize it is their concern, not mine." Silence. Then the tech CEO laughed. "Well, she's got spine at least." "Spine," Rania repeated, tasting the word. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Her husband touched her arm. "Rania." "What?" "I'm simply making conversation," but her voice had edges. "Surely the help is allowed to speak when directly addressed." "The help," Luca's voice went quiet, dangerously quiet, "has a name, which you've heard multiple times tonight." "Have the first?" Rania blinked. "Innocent." "I must have forgotten. How convenient." The temperature in the room dropped. Carter, too drunk to read it, laughed. "Come on, Luca. It's not that serious. She's just a—" "Finish that sentence." Luca didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "I'm very interested in how you plan to end it." Carter's smile faltered. His father finally looked up, eyes sharp, calculating, reading the danger his son was too stupid to see. "Carter, shut up." "But Dad, I was just—" "I said, shut up." "Carter, shut up." The senator turned to Luca, smiled. Professional politician's smile, empty of warmth. "My apologies. My son's had too much wine. You know how young men get. Do the first." "Of course. We've all been 23 and foolish." "Have we?" Luca stood, slowly, "because I seem to remember being 23 and knowing better than to disrespect someone in their own home." He walked around the table, not toward the senator, toward Carter, stopped behind the kid's chair, put both hands on the backrest. "Tell me, Carter, the wine you spilled, was it an accident?" Carter's face went red. "Yeah, I already said." "I'm not asking what you said. I'm asking what happened." The kid squirmed. "It was an accident. Look at me when you lie." Carter turned, met Luca's eyes, tried to hold the stare, failed. Looked away. That's what I thought. Luca straightened, walked back to his seat. Zafira, the wine. She moved forward, poured the 1947 Latour into his glass. Her hands steady now. Whatever was happening, she wasn't the target. She was the weapon. Luca raised his glass, studied the color, the way light moved through burgundy liquid. This wine is 120 years old, survived 2 world wars, the Depression, countless upheavals. He looked around the table. It's valuable because it's rare, because it endured, because it refused to spoil despite every reason to. He took a sip. Some things improve with time, with pressure, with being tested. Another sip, and some things. He looked at Carter. Just break. The kid's face went white. His father's jaw tightened. Rania looked between them, reading currents, adjusting her smile. Well, she raised her own glass. To endurance then. To endurance, Luca echoed. Everyone drank, but the toast felt like a threat. Zafira returned to her position by the cart, heart hammering, mind racing. Luca had just defended her, publicly, in front of people who could make him powerful enemies. Why? The dinner continued, but different now. Conversation forced, laughter hollow. The guests started making excuses to leave. Early meetings, long drives, sudden headaches. One by one they filtered out. The senator lingered, like he was waiting for something. An opportunity, maybe. Luca walked him to the door personally. They stood in the entrance hall, voices low. Zafira couldn't hear from where she stood, but she watched the senator lean in, say something, watched Luca's expression go flat, watched the senator's smile sharpen. Then they shook hands. The senator left. Rania was already gone, disappeared into the night in a car that cost more than houses. Carter had been poured into a town car by his mother, still drunk, still stupid. The estate emptied. Staff moved through cleanup. Quick, efficient, years of practice. Teresa worked beside Zafira, silent at first. Then, that was something. What was? What he did. Standing up for you like that. He was making a point. Yeah. The point was, don't mess with what's his. Teresa collected wine glasses. Question is, what are you to him? Zafira didn't answer, because she didn't know. They finished cleanup around 11. Most of the staff left, back to their own homes, their own lives separate from this estate and its dramas. Only the live-in staff remained. Zafira, the head housekeeper, the night security. Zafira headed toward the servants' stairs. Zafira. She turned. Luca stood at the end of the hall, still in his dinner clothes. Tie loosened slightly. My office. Now, not a request. She followed him up, through halls she knew by heart, to the third-floor office where secrets lived. He closed the door behind them, gestured to a chair. She sat. He poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed her one. I don't drink, sir. Tonight, you do. She took the glass. Didn't drink. Luca sat behind his desk, studied her. What happened tonight wasn't about you. I know. Do you? They wanted to test you, see how you'd react. Whether you'd defend your staff or let it slide. Smart. He sipped his scotch, but incomplete. What am I missing? The senator's running for governor, needs money. Lots of it. Luca swirled his glass. He thinks I'm weak enough to manipulate. Tonight was him showing his power, his reach, his ability to humiliate me in my own house. By humiliating me. Exactly. Zafira finally sipped the scotch. It burned. She didn't flinch. So, what happens now? Luca smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind that promised consequences. Now I show him the difference between power and control. He pulled out a folder, set it on the desk between them, opened it. Inside, photos, the ones Zafira had taken. The senator in Luca's study, going through files, plus others she hadn't seen. Security footage. Time-stamped. Dated. He's been stealing information for months, passing it to competitors, trying to undercut my business while pretending to be friendly. Why haven't you stopped him? Because I wanted to know who else was involved, how deep it went. Luca closed the folder. Now I know. He stood, walked to the window, looked out over gardens lost in darkness. The senator thinks tonight was his victory, his son dumping wine on you, Ranya's little comments. All of it designed to put me in my place. What was it really? Confirmation. He turned back. That he's as stupid as I hoped. Zafira processed this. You wanted him to do it, to attack me. I wanted him to reveal himself, his character, his cruelty. Luca moved closer, and he did. In front of witnesses, important witnesses who'll remember. Remember what? That Senator James Eldridge is the kind of man who mocks people serving him dinner, the kind who raises sons who dump wine on women for entertainment. Luca's voice went cold, and when his campaign implodes, when the media finds certain photos, certain recordings, they'll remember who he really is. Zafira's breath caught. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to let him destroy himself. Luca sat on the edge of his desk. Close now. I'm just providing the platform. And me, what was I? Bait. He said it simply. The best kind. The kind that looks innocent but hides teeth. Zafira stood. Set down her glass. You used me. I protected you. There's a difference. Is there? You're still standing, still safe, still employed in a house where you're valued. Luca's eyes held hers. The senator's son? By tomorrow he'll be trending on social media. That wine stunt? Someone filmed it, leaked it. By Monday his father's poll numbers will be in free fall. Who leaked it? Does it matter? It did. But Zafira didn't push. Instead she asked something else. What happens when the senator realizes you set him up? He'll retaliate. Try to hurt me however he can. Luca paused. Which is why you're not going to be here when he does. Zafira's stomach dropped. You're firing me. I'm promoting you. He pulled out an envelope. Plain. White. Her name written across it. The same kind of envelope from 6 years ago. From the laundromat. What is this? Open it. She did. Inside. A deed. Property deed. For the Bellamont building, a luxury high-rise in Midtown Manhattan. Her name on the ownership line. Zafira's hands shook. I don't understand. You saved my life. Twice. Luca stood. Once in an alley. Once during an FBI raid you never asked credit for. And tonight you stood there while people mocked you and didn't break. Didn't cry. Didn't give them the satisfaction. So you earned this. He gestured to the deed. Plus 17% of my clean portfolio. Legal businesses, legitimate holdings, enough to never work another day if you don't want to. Zafira couldn't breathe. Why? Because the world needs fewer people who take and more people who give without expecting payment. Luca walked to the door. You're free, Zafira. Effective immediately. What about you? The senator. We'll learn a hard lesson about underestimating the invisible. He opened the door. But that's my war, not yours. You fought enough. He left her standing there, holding a deed worth millions, holding freedom, holding proof that 6 years of silence had been heard after all. Zafira sank into the chair. The deed felt heavy, real, impossible. Outside the window, she heard something. Music. The estate grounds lit up, floodlights blazing. She moved to look. Below, staff were setting up something. Tables, chairs, a small stage. What was happening? She went downstairs, found Teresa in the main hall. What's going on? Teresa smiled. Actually smiled. Mr. Vaughan's orders. We're having a celebration. For what? For you. Before Zafira could respond, Luca's voice echoed through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen. Staff emerged from different rooms, confused, curious. Luca stood on the main staircase, visible to everyone. Tonight we witnessed something important. We saw powerful people reveal their true nature. And we saw someone, one of our own, handle it with more grace than they deserved. He looked directly at Zafira. Zafira Riley has worked here for 6 years, and as of tonight, she's no longer your colleague. Murmurs rippled through the staff. She's your boss. Silence. The Bellamont building now belongs to ZR Holdings, and ZR Holdings answers to her. Shocked faces, wide eyes. Carmen looked like she'd swallowed glass. Some of you treated her well. Some didn't. Luca's voice carried weight. I suggest you remember that going forward. He descended the stairs, walked straight to Zafira, extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, final. Thank you. He said it quiet enough only she heard. For saving me when you didn't have to. He released her hand, walked away, left her standing in a hall full of stairs. Teresa approached first, grabbed her in a hug. Girl, you just became a millionaire. This isn't. Shut up and accept it. Teresa laughed, tears in her eyes. You earned it. Other staff approached. Congratulations. Shock, some genuine, some forced. Carmen kept her distance, face unreadable. Zafira saw her leave through the side entrance. Didn't care. She had bigger things to process, like the fact that her life had just changed completely, like the fact that she owned a building, like the fact that Luca Vaughn, Mafia boss, dangerous man, killer probably, had just set her free. Later, alone in her room, she stared at the deed. Read her name over and over. Zafira Riley, owner. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Riley, a woman's voice. Professional. I'm calling from Ashford Legal. Mr. Vaughn asked us to handle your transition. We'll need to schedule meetings, paperwork, transfers. Okay. Yes. Is Monday convenient? Monday's fine. Excellent. We'll send a car. 9 m. The call ended. Zafira sat on her bed. Processed. 6 years ago she'd saved a bleeding man in an alley. Tonight, that man had saved her back by giving her power, real power, the kind that came with property and portfolios and choices. She looked out the window. The estate grounds were dark again, celebration over, but something moved near the east gate. A figure, standing alone, watching the house. She couldn't see details from this distance, but something about the posture was familiar. The figure raised a hand, almost like a wave, then disappeared into shadow. Zafira's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, a text. You're not done yet. No signature, no context, just those 4 words. Her hands went cold, because she recognized the implication. Freedom came with a price. And whatever Luca had started tonight was far from finished. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, not delivered to the Bellamont building, where Zafira now kept an office on the 20th floor. Not sent to the estate where she technically still had a room despite barely sleeping there anymore. It appeared on her car windshield, black sedan, parked outside her new apartment in the Upper East Side, building she'd bought outright 2 weeks after Luca transferred the deed. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive paper. Her name written in handwriting she recognized instantly. Luca's. Zafira looked around the parking garage. Empty. Just concrete columns and fluorescent lights humming overhead. She opened the envelope. Inside, a single photograph. Her, standing in the alley 6 years ago, kneeling beside Luca while he bled. The angle suggested someone had been watching from a rooftop. Professional surveillance. On the back, written in different handwriting, not Luca's this time, 4 words. We remember everything too. Her stomach dropped. She got in the car, locked the doors, hands shaking as she pulled out her phone. Called the number Luca had given her. Emergency use only. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Someone left a photo on my car from that night. The alley. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Parking garage. My building. Stay there. I'm sending someone. Luca, don't move, don't leave, don't talk to anyone. He hung up. Zafira sat in her car, engine off, heart hammering. 6 years. She'd been free for 6 years from that alley, from that choice, from the consequences of helping a stranger who turned out to be dangerous. And now someone was reminding her that freedom had conditions. 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled into the garage. Marco got out. Luca's head of security, ex-military posture, eyes that scanned everything twice. He knocked on her window. She unlocked the door. "Show me the envelope." She handed it over. Marco studied the photo, flipped it. "Read the message." His jaw tightened. "This is a threat. I figured that out." "From who?" "I don't know. That's why I called." Marco pulled out his phone, took photos of the envelope, the message, the original picture, sent them somewhere. "Mr. Vaughan wants you at the estate. Now, I have meetings. Cancel them." Not a suggestion. Zafira followed the SUV in her own car, through Manhattan traffic that moved like molasses, across the bridge, into neighborhoods that got progressively quieter, richer, more removed from normal life. The estate gates opened before they arrived. Security must have called ahead. She parked in the circular drive, followed Marco inside. Luca stood in his study, same room the senator had searched months ago. Windows overlooking gardens that cost more to maintain than most people's houses. He turned when she entered. "Let me see it." She handed him the envelope. He studied the photo longer than Marco had, his expression unreadable, but something moved behind his eyes. Calculation, maybe, or memory. This was taken by Andre. Zafira's breath caught. "How do you know?" "The angle, the distance, the fact that anyone was there at all." Luca set the photo on his desk. "Andre was my associate. Still is, technically. He helped you that night because I asked him to." "You asked him?" "After you called, after you chose to help instead of running." Luca moved to the window. "I had people watching, making sure you were safe, making sure whoever shot me didn't come back to finish the job. So, you've had people watching me for 6 years. Not watching, protecting." He turned. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Luca didn't answer that. Instead, he picked up the photo again. The handwriting on the back isn't Andre's, which means someone got access to his files. His archives. Who? That's what we're going to find out. Marco spoke from the doorway. "Andre's been clean for 2 years. Parole conditions, regular check-ins, no connections to anyone problematic. Then someone got to him." Luca's voice went cold. "Find out who, find out when, and find out what else they know." Marco left. Zafira sat in the chair opposite Luca's desk. The same chair she'd sat in the night everything changed. "You said I was free." "You are. Then why does it feel like I'm still trapped?" Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then, he sat across from her. "Because freedom isn't the absence of threats. It's having the resources to handle them." He leaned forward. "Someone's trying to scare you, remind you that you're vulnerable, that what you have can be taken away." "Can it?" "Not while I'm breathing." The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it reminded her of something she'd been trying to ignore for months. That Luca Vaughan's protection came with strings. Invisible ones, maybe, but strings nonetheless. What do they want? Leverage, probably. "Against me." Luca stood, paced. "You're valuable now. Property, portfolio, position. Taking you down hurts me, makes me look weak. Unable to protect what's mine. I'm not yours." He stopped pacing, looked at her. "Aren't you?" The question hung between them. Not romantic, not possessive. Something else. Something that acknowledged the debt that ran both ways. The lives saved. The loyalty earned. The connection forged in blood and silence. Before Zafira could answer, Marco returned. Fast, breathing hard. "Sir, we have a problem." "What kind?" "Andre's missing. Hasn't checked in with his parole officer in 3 days. Apartments cleared out. No forwarding address." Luca's expression went flat. Dangerous. Find him. Already looking. But sir, Marco hesitated. There's more. Tell me. The senator, Eldridge, he's been asking questions. About Miss Riley, about her connections to you, about how a maid became a millionaire overnight. Zafira's blood went cold. He knows. He's guessing. But getting closer, Luca walked to his desk, pulled out a file. Thick, official-looking. This is everything on Senator Eldridge. Every dirty deal, every bribe, every affair, every skeleton he thought he buried. He slid it across to Zafira. What am I supposed to do with this? Learn it. Know it. Because when he comes for you, and he will, you're going to need ammunition. I thought you were handling him. I am. But he's smart enough to know attacking me directly is suicide, so he'll attack you instead. The woman who humiliated his son. The woman I defended publicly. I didn't humiliate anyone. You existed. In their world, that's enough. Zafira opened the file. Started reading. Campaign finance violations. Offshore accounts. A mistress in Virginia who'd signed an NDA that Luca somehow had copies of. How did you get all this? I've been collecting insurance for years. Luca's smile was cold. The powerful always think they're untouchable. Until someone touches them anyway. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She showed Luca. Answer it. Speaker. She did. Miss Riley. A man's voice. Smooth. Educated. We haven't met formally, but I believe we have mutual interests. Who is this? Someone who knows what you did 6 years ago. Someone who knows how you really got rich. A pause. And someone who's very interested in sharing that story. Unless we can come to an arrangement. Luca leaned forward, listening. What kind of arrangement? You leave New York, permanently, transfer your holdings to a company I'll specify, and we forget we ever had this conversation. And if I don't, then the world learns that Zafira Riley built her empire on blood money, that she's complicit in organized crime, that every dollar she owns came from helping a killer escape justice. The line went dead. Zafira's hands shook. Luca's didn't. Trace that call. He spoke to Marco without looking away from her. Already on it, and double security on all her properties. The building, the apartment. Everywhere she goes. Sir, do it now. Marco left again. Luca moved around the desk, sat on the edge, close enough that Zafira could see the anger in his eyes. They're playing games they can't win. How do you know? Because I've been playing longer. He pulled out his phone, made a call. It's me. We need to move up the timeline. He listened. I don't care about the optics. Do it tonight. He hung up, turned back to Zafira. Go home, pack a bag. You're staying here until this is resolved. I can take care of myself. Can you? He gestured to the photo still sitting on his desk. Someone found Andre, got his files, made a threat on your life in under 12 hours. You think your security system is better than mine? He had a point. How long? However long it takes. Zafira stood. I saved your life. Twice. That doesn't mean I belong to you. No. It means we protect each other. Luca's voice softened slightly. Let me do my part. She looked at him. Really looked. Saw something she hadn't noticed before. Fear. Not for himself. For her. Okay. Relief crossed his face. Brief. Gone in a second. Marco will drive you. Pack light. This won't take long. Famous last words. Because 3 hours later, sitting in her guest room at the estate, watching news alerts blow up her phone, Zafira realized something. The war Luca promised. It had just gone nuclear, and she was standing at ground zero. When your past catches up, do you run or fight? Drop your answer below. Subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. Share your thoughts in the comments and inspire others. The music stopped mid-note. Every head in the Vaughan Estate's main hall turned toward the entrance. Staff, security, the handful of associates Luca kept close, all frozen, because standing in the doorway Flanked by 2 federal agents was Senator James Eldridge, and he was smiling. Zafira stood on the second-floor landing. She'd been heading down for coffee. Now she gripped the marble railing hard enough to hurt. Luca emerged from his study, calm, composed, like federal agents showing up unannounced was part of his Tuesday routine. "Senator, this is unexpected, is it?" Eldridge stepped inside. His shoes, expensive Italian leather, clicked against marble. "I have a warrant." He pulled a folded document from his coat, extended it. Luca didn't take it, just looked. A warrant for what? Financial records, property transfers, specifically those related to one Zafira Riley. The senator's eyes scanned the hall, landed on her. Speaking of whom, Zafira's stomach dropped. One of the agents moved toward the stairs. "Miss Riley, we need you to come with us. She's not going anywhere." Luca's voice cut through the hall like a blade. The agent stopped, hand moving toward his hip, toward the weapon there. "Sir, we have legal authority to investigate financial crimes, not to arrest without cause." Luca stepped between the agent and the staircase. "So unless you have a warrant for her specifically, she stays exactly where she is." Eldridge's smile widened. "Actually, we do." He pulled out a second document. This one had Zafira's name across the top in bold letters. Her vision blurred at the edges. "On what grounds?" Luca's voice stayed level, but his hands had curled into fists. "Conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, racketeering." The senator ticked them off like items on a grocery list. "Should I continue?" "Those are lies." "Are they?" Eldridge moved closer to the stairs. "Funny thing about lies. Sometimes they're just truths people haven't proven yet." Zafira descended slowly, one step at a time. Her legs felt like water, but her face stayed composed. 6 years of survival had taught her that much. When she reached the bottom, the agent moved forward with handcuffs. "That won't be necessary." A new voice. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the entrance. 50s, expensive suit, briefcase that probably cost more than the average car. She walked in like she owned the building. "Who are you?" the agent asked. "Patricia Chen, Miss Riley's attorney." She handed him a card. "And unless you plan to charge my client right now, those handcuffs stay in your pocket." The agent looked at Eldridge. The senator's smile flickered, just slightly. "We have questions, which my client will answer, with me present, at a time and location of our choosing." Patricia moved to stand beside Zafira, not during an illegal intimidation tactic disguised as an investigation. "This is a federal warrant, which I'll be challenging in court within the hour." Patricia pulled out her phone, started typing. "Judge Morrison owes me a favor. I suspect she'll be very interested in how you obtained evidence for this warrant." Eldridge's jaw tightened. "You can't stop this. Watch me." The hall went silent. Federal agents versus high-priced attorney. Senator versus Mafia boss. All of them circling Zafira like she was prey worth fighting over. Finally, Eldridge stepped back. "Fine. We'll do this properly." He looked at Zafira. "But understand something, Miss Riley. Every transaction you've made is being examined. Every dollar traced. Every connection investigated." He moved toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. "Oh, and that building you're so proud of? The Bellamont? Might want to check the fire safety records. I heard there were some violations. Serious ones. Threat delivered. Message clear." He left. Agents following. The estate exhaled. Zafira's knees went weak. She grabbed the staircase railing. Patricia caught her elbow. "Sit down before you fall down." They moved to Luca's study. Private. Secure. Luca poured 3 glasses of scotch. Handed them out. "Talk." He directed it at Patricia. "The senator filed complaints 3 weeks ago. Federal level. Claiming Miss Riley's assets were obtained through criminal enterprise." Patricia sipped her drink. "He's been building a case, quietly, using resources that suggest he has backing." "What kind of backing?" the kind that comes with badges and budgets. She pulled documents from her briefcase. FBI opened an investigation 2 weeks ago. They've been tracking transactions, interviewing contacts, building a timeline. Zafira found her voice. Everything I have is legal. The building, the portfolio, was gifted to you by a known organized crime figure. Patricia cut her off gently. Legal doesn't mean clean. Not in their eyes. So what do? We prove origin of funds, show that Mr. Vaughan's businesses are legitimate, that the transfers were proper, that you've done nothing wrong. Patricia set down her glass. But that takes time and evidence and cooperation from people who typically don't cooperate. Luca spoke. How long? Months. Maybe longer if they push hard. We don't have months. Then we fight dirty. Patricia looked between them. I need everything. Every transaction, every document, every piece of evidence that proves Miss Riley earned this legitimately. She saved my life. Twice. That's how she earned it. Prove it. Silence. Because how do you prove salvation? How do you document gratitude? How do you make a court understand that sometimes debts get paid in buildings and portfolios instead of cash? Patricia stood. I'll file motions, delay tactics, buy us time. She looked at Zafira. But you need to understand. The senator wants blood. He won't stop until he gets it. Why? What did I do to him? You existed. You survived. You succeeded. Patricia headed for the door. In his world, that's crime enough. She left. Zafira and Luca sat in silence. Outside, afternoon sun painted the gardens gold. Beautiful. Peaceful. Completely at odds with the war erupting around them. I should run. Zafira spoke quietly. Leave New York. Start over somewhere he can't reach. He can reach everywhere. Then what? Luca stood. Walked to a painting on the wall. Some European artist she didn't recognize. He touched the frame. It swung open. Behind it, a safe, digital lock. He entered a code. Inside sat a single USB drive. He handed it to her. What is this? Everything on Eldridge. Things I couldn't put in that file. Things that would destroy him if they went public. Luca closed the safe. His connection to the warehouse fires. Proof he ordered them. Recordings, financial transfers. All of it. Zafira stared at the drive. Small thing. Barely weighed anything. But it felt heavy as a weapon. Why give this to me? Because if something happens, if this goes wrong, you need protection. He met her eyes. That drive is a nuclear option. Use it only if you have to. What counts as having to? You'll know. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She showed Luca. He nodded. She answered. Speaker again. Miss Riley. I hope you're ready. Different voice this time. Woman. Older. Professional. Ready for what? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., your building. Channel 7's doing a special report on corruption in real estate, featuring interviews with people who claim you bribed inspectors, falsified documents, and bought your way into ownership. Zafira's blood went cold. That's a lie. Is it? Because we have witnesses, documents, evidence that suggests otherwise. Who is this? Someone who believes in truth. And the truth is, Miss Riley, you don't deserve what you have. The line went dead. Luca was already on his phone. Kill the story. I don't care how. Kill it. He listened. His expression darkened. Then buy the network. I want it done by midnight. He hung up. Looked at Zafira. Pack a bag. Real one this time. We're leaving. Where? Somewhere they can't find us while we regroup. Running won't. I'm not running. I'm repositioning. He moved toward the door. Called for Marco. Get the jet ready. File a flight plan for Miami, but we're actually going to the Caymans. Marco nodded. Left. Zafira stood. Luca, this is insane. This is war. He turned. And in war, sometimes you have to retreat to advance. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. But here we are. He walked out, left her standing in his study holding a USB drive that could end a senator's career. or start a war that would consume them all. 2 hours later, Zafira sat in the back of an SUV heading toward a private airfield, Luca beside her, Marco driving, 2 more security vehicles flanking them. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News alerts, unknown numbers, messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly very interested in her story. She turned it off. They're going to run the story anyway. She spoke to the window, to her own reflection. Buying the network won't stop them. No, but it'll slow them down. Give us time. Time for what? To show them what happens when you come after what's mine. There was that word again. Mine. She wanted to argue, to remind him she wasn't property, wasn't owned. But the truth was more complicated, because Luca Vaughan had given her freedom. Real freedom. The kind that came with resources and power and choices. And now someone was trying to take it away, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because helping the wrong person 6 years ago had put a target on her back. They arrived at the airfield. Small. Private. The kind celebrities and criminals used when they needed to disappear. A jet waited. Sleek. White. No markings. They boarded quickly. Luca's phone rang as they settled into leather seats that cost more than furniture. He answered. Listened. His face went hard. When? More listening. Show me. He pulled out a tablet, opened something. His knuckles went white. Zafira. Look at this. She leaned over. The screen showed news footage. Live. From the Belmont building. Police cars. Fire trucks. Crowds gathering. And flames. Pouring from the 20th floor. Her floor. Her office. No. The word came out broken. Luca made calls. Rapid fire. Demanding answers. Demanding action. But Zafira couldn't hear him. She just watched her building burn. Watched the thing she'd worked for, survived for, earned through blood and silence, go up in smoke. The jet engines started. They took off. Left New York burning behind them. And Zafira realized something as the city disappeared below. The senator wasn't just trying to destroy her. He was trying to erase her. Prove she never deserved any of it. Send her back to being invisible. But he'd made a mistake. Because Zafira had spent 6 years being invisible. Learning. Watching. Waiting. And invisible people saw everything, including weak points. She pulled out the USB drive. Looked at Luca. Teach me how to use this. He smiled. Not nice. Dangerous. Now you're thinking like a fighter. When everything you built starts burning, do you run or do you fight back? Comment your choice. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The battle's just beginning. Share this story and inspire others to never give up. The video went live at 3 a.m. Zafira watched it from a villa in the Caymans. Windows open to ocean breeze. Sound of waves crashing against private beach. Everything peaceful except the phone in her hand showing chaos exploding across the internet. Senator James Eldridge, in a parking garage, meeting with a man whose face was blurred but whose jacket read Torchlight Security, the same company that had been cited for the Belmont fire. Audio was clear. Crystal clear. Make it look like an accident. Electrical. Something the inspectors will blame on her. And, if people are inside, then they should have worked somewhere else. The video cut. Timestamp visible. Date matched the week before the fire. Within 10 minutes, it had 50,000 views. Within an hour, 500,000. By dawn, every major news outlet was covering it. Senator Eldridge, running for governor on a platform of law and order, caught ordering arson. Zafira set down her phone, looked at Luca sitting across from her on the villa's terrace. Coffee in hand, watching sunrise paint the ocean pink and gold. You leaked it. I released evidence. He sipped his coffee. There's a difference. People could have died in that fire, but they didn't, because I had the building evacuated 2 hours before it started. He set down his cup. I knew it was coming. Had people watching, waiting. Zafira's mind spun. You let them burn my building. I let them expose themselves. He leaned forward. The fire was coming whether I stopped it or not. The senator wanted you destroyed, so I gave him rope and watched him hang himself with it. That's strategic. Luca stood, walked to the railing. You wanted to fight back. This is how you fight people with power. You don't meet them head on. You let them destroy themselves while you document everything. Her phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, news alerts. One text stood out. From Patricia Chen. Turn on Channel 7. Zafira found the remote, turned on the villa's flat screen. A news anchor sat at a desk. Serious expression. Breaking news banner scrolling across the bottom. Senator James Eldridge has issued a statement denying involvement in the Bellamont building fire. His office claims the video circulating online is fabricated. However, sources close to the investigation say federal authorities are now examining his financial connections to Torchlight Security. The anchor continued. Additionally, several former staff members have come forward with allegations of misconduct, including harassment and misuse of campaign funds. The screen cut to a woman. 50s. Professional clothes. Face Zafira vaguely recognized. I worked for Senator Eldridge for 3 years. What you saw in that video, that's nothing compared to what happens behind closed doors. More testimony, more allegations, more cracks forming in a carefully constructed image. Zafira turned off the TV. How many of those people did you pay? None. Luca returned to his seat. They were always there, waiting for someone to give them permission to speak. The video gave them cover. And if it backfires, if he finds a way to spin this, he won't. How do you know? Luca pulled out his phone, showed her a news alert. Eldridge campaign manager resigns, cites ethical concerns. Another alert. Major donor withdraws support. Calls for independent investigation. Another. Governor's race polls show Eldridge dropping 23 points overnight. Zafira read them all. Watched a campaign collapse in real time. What about Rania? His wife? Luca scrolled through more articles. She filed for separation this morning. Very public, very dramatic. Her statement said she had no knowledge of her husband's activities and is cooperating fully with investigators. Is that true? Does it matter? He set down his phone. She's protecting herself. Smart move. Zafira walked to the railing, looked out at ocean stretching endless and blue. Behind her, her building was probably still smoking. Her office destroyed. 6 months of work gone. But the senator was burning too. Faster, hotter, more complete. What happens now? Now we wait. Luca stood beside her. Let the media do what they do. Let investigators do their job. Let the senator twist in the wind he created. And me? You rebuild. He gestured back toward the villa. Insurance will cover the building. You still own the land. The portfolio's intact. You're bruised, not broken. I don't feel bruised. I feel furious. Luca smiled. Good. Fury's useful. Keeps you sharp. Her phone rang. Patricia Chen. She answered. Tell me you're somewhere safe. Cayman Islands. Perfect. Stay there. Patricia's voice came fast. Urgent. The FBI dropped their investigation. All charges dismissed. Apparently they found evidence that the senator's office fabricated documents used to obtain the warrant. Zafira's breath caught. They what? Forged financial records, fake witness statements. Everything they used to come after you was manufactured. Patricia paused. The agents who served that warrant? 2 of them are being investigated for corruption. How is that possible? Someone very thorough did very deep digging. Patricia's tone suggested she knew exactly who. But here's the important part. You're clear. Completely. No charges. No investigation. Clean slate. Relief flooded through Zafira's chest. Made her legs weak. What about the senator? He's facing federal charges. Conspiracy. Obstruction. Arson. The list keeps growing. Patricia sounded satisfied. His career's over, his reputation's destroyed, and his wife's lawyers are making sure he doesn't see a dime of their shared assets. Good. There's more. Patricia's voice shifted. Careful now. You've received offers. Multiple companies want to buy the Bellamont land. Numbers are impressive. How impressive? Patricia named a figure that made Zafira sit down. That's triple what you paid. And that's the lowest offer. Patricia continued. You could sell, walk away with generational wealth, never work again. Zafira looked at Luca. He was watching her, expression neutral, letting her decide. Or, she asked Patricia, or you rebuild, make it bigger, better. Show everyone that burning your building just made you stronger. Zafira closed her eyes. Thought about the 9th Ward, about sleeping behind dryers, about saving a bleeding stranger because it was the right thing to do even when it was dangerous, about 6 years of being invisible while learning everything. I'm rebuilding. I was hoping you'd say that. Patricia sounded pleased. I'll start the paperwork. And Miss Riley? Yes? You just became the most talked about property owner in New York. Everyone wants to know your story, your background, how you survived this. Tell them, I don't give interviews. Already did. But the requests keep coming. Book deals, documentary offers. Someone wants to option your life rights for a movie. Zafira laughed. Couldn't help it. 6 years ago she was sleeping in a laundromat. Now, Hollywood wanted her story. Decline everything. I'm not interested in being famous. Understood. I'll be in touch. Patricia hung up. Zafira sat in silence, processing, absorbing. Luca moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of something expensive, handed her one. To survival, she raised her glass. To justice, same thing. Sometimes, they drank. The alcohol burned. Good burn. Cleansing. Thank you. She said it quietly. For everything. You saved my life. I returned the favor. Luca set down his glass. We're even, are we? He looked at her. Really looked. Something shifted in his expression. No, we're not. He moved closer. Because what we have isn't about debt anymore. It's about partnership. About understanding that sometimes the strongest alliances form in blood and fire. Is that what this is? An alliance? It's whatever we decide it is. The moment stretched, complicated, heavy with unspoken things. Zafira's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. Another news alert. Senator Eldridge arrested, charged with multiple felonies. She showed Luca. He read it, nodded. It's done then. Is it? The senator's finished, his campaign's dead, his reputation's ash. Luca walked back to the railing. Everything he tried to take from you came back and destroyed him instead. What about the people who helped him? The agents? The security company? Being handled quietly. He didn't elaborate. Zafira didn't ask. Some things were better not knowing. She stood, walked to her room, needed space. Needed air that wasn't heavy with victory and violence. Found her laptop. Opened it. Started researching reconstruction companies, architects, designers. If she was rebuilding, she was doing it right. Making something better than before. Hours passed. Sun climbed higher. Heat built. Luca knocked on her door around noon. There's someone here to see you. Who? You should come see. She followed him to the villa's main room. A woman sat on the couch. Older. Dressed simple but clean. Face weathered by time and hardship. Face Zafira recognized instantly. Teresa. The older woman stood. Smiled. Surprise. They hugged. Tight. Real. What are you doing here? Mr. Vaughn flew me out. Said you might need a familiar face. Teresa pulled back. Studied her. You look different. Different. How? Stronger. Like you finally figured out what you're worth. Zafira's throat tightened. I'm rebuilding the Bellamont. I heard. Teresa sat back down. That's why I'm here. I want to help. Help. How? However you need. I've got 15 years' experience managing estates. I'm good with people, good with budgets, good at keeping things running smooth. She paused. And I'm loyal to people who deserve it. Zafira looked at Luca. He shrugged. Your company. Your call. She turned back to Teresa. The building won't be ready for months. Maybe longer. Then I'll help you plan. Hire staff. Set up systems. Teresa leaned forward. You gave me a job when others wrote me off as too old. Let me return that. You don't owe me anything. I know. That's why I want to do it. Zafira smiled. Real smile. First one, in days. Okay. You're hired. Operations manager. ZR Holdings. Teresa's eyes went wet. Thank you. Thank you. They spent the afternoon planning. Teresa took notes, asked questions, made suggestions that showed exactly why she'd survived 15 years in the Vaughan estate. By evening, they had an outline, a strategy, a vision. The Bellamont would return, bigger, better, more secure, and it would hire from neighborhoods like the 9th Ward, give opportunities to people who'd been invisible too long, make something beautiful from ashes. Luca watched from the terrace, didn't interrupt, just observed. When Teresa went to her room to rest, he approached Zafira. You're going to be good at this. At what? Building, leading, creating something that matters. I learned from watching you. No. He shook his head. You learned from surviving. I just gave you resources. He handed her an envelope. What's this? Contracts. For 3 women from your old neighborhood. Full salaries, benefits, healthcare. They start when you're ready. Zafira opened it. Read names she recognized. Girls who'd been in her same situation. Surviving. Struggling. Invisible. How did you find them? I pay attention. He moved toward the door. Dinner's in an hour. Try to relax. He left. Zafira sat with the envelope, thought about circles, how they close, how they expand, how sometimes saving one life ripples outward until dozens more get saved too. Her phone buzzed one more time. Final news alert of the day. Senator Eldridge's mansion seized by federal authorities, assets frozen pending investigation. She smiled, turned off her phone, walked onto the terrace, watched sunset paint the ocean orange and red, and thought about tomorrow, about rebuilding, about becoming visible on her own terms, about showing everyone that invisible people don't stay invisible. They just wait for the right moment to be seen. The rose appeared on her doorstep at midnight. Single stem. Red. Perfect. No card. No note. Just sitting there on the villa's entrance like someone had placed it seconds before. Zafira stood in the doorway, barefoot, sleep shirt hanging loose, hair wrapped in silk because some habits from the 9th Ward never died. She'd heard something, a sound that pulled her from dreams about burning buildings and senators in handcuffs. Now she stared at the flower. Security lights bathed the entrance in harsh white. Beyond them, darkness, ocean sounds, wind through palm trees. Nothing else. She picked up the rose, turned it over. No thorns. Someone had removed them. Careful, deliberate. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Text from unknown number. Sleep well. You're safe tonight. Her breath caught. She looked into the darkness beyond the lights. Searched for movement, for shadows, for any sign of who was watching. Nothing. But someone was there. She felt it. Went back inside. Locked the door, set the rose on the kitchen counter, stared at it like it might explain itself. Her phone buzzed again. This time a voice message, encrypted. Same kind Luca used. She played it. Static first, then breathing. Then a voice she recognized despite not having heard it in months. Miss Riley, I hope the rose finds you well. Andre, the man who'd helped save Luca 6 years ago. The man who disappeared 3 days ago. The man whose surveillance photos had been used to threaten her. I apologize for the scare. The envelope on your car. That wasn't my choice. They took my files, used them against you. He paused. But I'm handling it now, making sure they can't hurt you again. More breathing. I'm in Italy, cleaning up loose ends. Mr. Vaughan knows where I am, knows what I'm doing. Another pause. Longer. You saved him. That makes you family, and family gets protected. Always. The message ended. Zafira played it twice more, trying to read between words. Understand what cleaning up loose ends meant when spoken by someone in Luca's world. She didn't want to know, but she knew anyway. Morning came fast. Zafira woke to sun streaming through windows and the smell of coffee brewing. Rich, strong, expensive. Teresa was in the kitchen, already dressed, already working. Morning, made breakfast. Hope you like eggs. Zafira sat at the counter. Accepted coffee. Black, 2 sugars. The way her mother used to make it before hospitals and waiting rooms that came too late. You're up early. Old habits. Teresa plated scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit that probably cost more here than in New York. Plus, I got a call. From your lawyer. Patricia said to tell you the insurance came through. Full payout. Building reconstruction can start next month if you approve the contractor. That fast. Apparently having a senator arrested for arson speeds up claims processing. Teresa smiled. Who knew? They ate in comfortable silence. Then Teresa spoke again, careful, like she was testing words before releasing them. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd you stay? After that first dinner when they humiliated you, why didn't you quit? Zafira thought about it, really thought. Because quitting would have meant they won, that their cruelty mattered more than my survival. She sipped coffee. And because I learned something working for Luca, that power isn't about being loud, it's about being patient. You sound like him. Maybe. Or maybe we just understand the same things. Teresa collected plates, started washing. He cares about you, more than he shows. It's complicated. Best things usually are. Footsteps on the terrace. Luca appeared, phone pressed to his ear, expression dark. He hung up, looked at Zafira. We have a problem. What kind? Rania Eldridge. The senator's wife. He sat across from her. She's giving interviews, claiming you seduced her husband, that you manipulated Luca, that everything that happened was your fault. Zafira's stomach dropped. That's insane. Doesn't matter. She's on national television right now, spinning a story. He pulled out his tablet, showed her. Rania sat in an elegant living room. Pearls, tasteful makeup, victim expression perfected. James made mistakes. I won't defend them. But he was manipulated. This woman, Zafira Riley, she knew exactly what she was doing. The interviewer leaned forward. What do you mean? She worked in Luca Vaughan's house, a known criminal. She learned how to manipulate powerful men, how to get what she wanted through deception. Rania's voice quivered. Practiced tears. My husband was vulnerable. She exploited that. Zafira felt sick. She's lying. Of course she is. Luca turned off the tablet. But lies told well sound like truth to people who want to believe them. So what do we do? You ignore her. Don't respond. Don't engage. He stood, paced. She's desperate, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. This is her playing victim, and if people believe her, some will, most won't. He stopped pacing. You have something. She doesn't. What? Truth. Documentation. Evidence. He pulled out his phone. Patricia's already drafting a statement. Facts only, no emotions. Just timeline of events that prove Rania's lying. Will that be enough? It'll have to be, but doubt lived in his voice. 3 hours later, social media exploded. Videos, memes, hot takes. Everyone had opinions about Zafira Riley, the mysterious woman who'd gone from maid to millionaire overnight. Some called her inspiring. Others called her a con artist. Hashtags trended. Zafira Riley. The real story. Hashtag justice for Eldridge. Zafira turned off her phone. Couldn't watch anymore. Walked down to the beach. Let ocean waves drown out internet noise. Teresa found her an hour later. Sat beside her in sand that felt nothing like Louisiana dirt. You okay? No. Good. Means you're human. Teresa picked up a shell, studied it. You know what I learned working for rich people? What? They tear each other apart constantly. It's sport, entertainment, but the ones who survive aren't the loudest. They're the ones who keep building while everyone else is busy talking. So I should just ignore it? You should keep doing what you've been doing, rebuilding, hiring, creating something real. Teresa tossed the shell into waves. Let Rania have her moment. Moments pass. Legacies don't. That evening, Zafira received an email. Subject line, an opportunity from a foundation she'd never heard of, offering partnership, resources, connections to other women who'd built businesses from nothing. She read it twice, forwarded it to Patricia. Response came back in minutes. Legitimate, well respected. This is good for you. Another email arrived, then another. Organizations, non-profits, business groups, all reaching out, all interested in her story, her success, her survival, not because of scandal, because of substance. Zafira started responding, carefully, professionally, setting up meetings, building networks, turning noise into opportunity. Luca watched from the doorway. You're good at this. At what? Turning attacks into assets. He moved into the room. Most people would hide. You're building. Learned from the best. He smiled. Rare, genuine one. I need to go back to New York, handle some things. You should stay here a few more days. How long will you be gone? Week, maybe less. He paused. Marco stays. Full security. You're covered. I can take care of myself. I know. Humor me anyway. He left the next morning. Private jet. Small team. All business. Zafira stood on the terrace, watched the plane disappear into clouds, felt strange being alone. Not alone. Teresa was here. Security. Staff. But without Luca, the villa felt different. Emptier. She shook off the feeling. Spent the next 3 days working. Video calls with architects. Budget reviews with accountants. Interviews with potential hires. The Bellamont reconstruction plan took shape. Bigger than before. 25 floors instead of 20. Mixed use. Residential. Commercial. Community spaces. And, on the ground floor, a wellness center. Free services. Open to anyone. Named after her mother. Keisha Riley Memorial Center. Zafira stared at the rendering. Felt something crack open in her chest. Her mother died waiting for care they couldn't afford. Now, Zafira was building a place where that wouldn't happen to others. Full circle. Day 4, another rose appeared. Same as before. Red. Perfect. No thorns. This time with a note. Almost finished. Stay safe. A. Andre was still watching. Still protecting. From wherever he was. Whatever he was doing. Zafira kept the rose with the first one. 2 stems in a crystal vase Teresa found somewhere. Reminders that invisible protection was still protection. Day 6, Luca called. Turn on the news. She did. Former Senator James Eldridge sentenced to 15 years federal prison. The anchor continued. The disgraced politician was convicted on multiple counts including arson, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. His wife, Rania Eldridge, is facing separate charges related to campaign finance violations. Zafira's breath caught. Rania's being charged. Investigators found evidence she knew about everything, helped cover it up, used campaign funds for personal expenses. Luca's voice held satisfaction. She's not a victim. She's an accomplice. How long? 5 to 7 years if she's convicted, which she will be. Justice. Real justice. Not the kind that protected wealth and connections. The kind that actually held people accountable. When are you coming back? Tomorrow. We need to talk. His tone shifted. Serious. About what happens next. What do you mean? You'll see. He hung up. Zafira sat with those words. About what happens next. Because the senator was finished. Rania was facing consequences. The building was being rebuilt. The war was over. So what came next? The answer arrived the following afternoon. Luca returned, looking tired but satisfied. They sat on the terrace, ocean breeze. Sunset approaching. He handed her a folder. "What's this?" "Contract. Between ZR Holdings and Vaughan Industries." She opened it. Read. "Partnership agreement, shared resources, combined security, mutual protection, official alliance. You want to go into business together? I want to make permanent what we've been doing informally." He leaned back. "You have vision, resources, reputation now. I have infrastructure, experience, connections, and protection. That, too." He didn't deny it. "Together we build something neither of us could build alone." Zafira studied the contract. Fair terms, equal partnership, exit clauses if either wanted out. Professional, clean. Except it wasn't just business. It was acknowledgement. That 6 years ago, saving a bleeding stranger had created something bigger than debt. Partnership, trust, family, the kind you choose. "I'll have Patricia review it." Already did. She approved. Of course she did. They sat in silence, watching sun sink toward horizon. "There's something else." Luca pulled out his phone, showed her a text. From Andre. "Finished. Coming home. See you soon." What did he finish? Making sure no one else can hurt you the way the senator tried. Luca put away his phone. Some threats you eliminate, others you neutralize. Andre handles the second kind. Zafira didn't ask for details. Some things were better left in shadows. "Thank you. For everything. You keep saying that, because I keep meaning it." Luca stood, walked to the railing. 6 years ago you saved me in an alley. You could have walked away, should have walked away. But you didn't. I couldn't. Why? Because walking away would have meant someone died when I could have helped. And I've seen too much death to add more. He turned, looked at her. "That's why I knew you were worth protecting. Because people who help without calculating cost are rare, especially in my world. Is that what I am? An investment? No." His voice softened. "You're proof that sometimes the right choice leads somewhere good, even when it starts in blood." The moment stretched, heavy with meaning neither put into words. Finally Zafira spoke. "I'll sign the contract." "Good." They shook hands, professional, formal. But something else lived underneath. Recognition, respect, connection, the kind built over years of survival and silence. That night, a third rose appeared, this time delivered by hand. Andre stood in the doorway, older than she remembered, weathered, but alive. He handed her the flower. "Had to make sure personally that you're safe." "I am, thanks to you." He nodded. "Mr. Vaughan's good people saved my life once. You saved his. That makes you family." He turned to leave. Stopped. "The people who came after you, the ones who took my files, what about them? They won't be coming after anyone else." He left. Zafira closed the door, added the third rose to the vase. Stood looking at them. 3 perfect flowers. 3 promises kept. 3 reminders that protection came in forms you couldn't always see, but could always feel. Sometimes, the people protecting you are the ones you never see. The foundation doors opened on a Saturday morning. Zafira stood on the sidewalk outside, 9th Ward. Same streets she'd walked broke and invisible. Same corners where she'd waited for buses that came late. Same buildings where neighbors who'd become family used to live before floods and fires and foreclosures scattered everyone. But this building was different, new, clean, windows that actually worked, paint that wasn't peeling, sign above the entrance reading Keisha Riley Memorial Wellness Center, her mother's name, in bronze letters, permanent. People gathered, neighborhood folks, families. Children running around like children do when hope feels possible again. Teresa stood beside her, clipboard in hand, running final checks even though everything had been checked 3 times already. "We're ready." Zafira nodded. Couldn't speak yet. Throat too tight. This moment was 6 years coming. Longer. A lifetime. from sleeping behind dryers to cutting ribbons on buildings named after women who died waiting for care. Full Circle didn't cover it. She walked to the entrance, found the oversized scissors someone had left for the ceremony. The small crowd quieted. Zafira looked at faces, saw herself in them. The struggle, the survival, the stubborn refusal to disappear. My mother died in a hospital waiting room. Her voice carried, clear, strong. Not because she wasn't sick enough, because we weren't rich enough, because invisible people don't get seen until it's too late. Heads nodded. People understood. They'd lived it. This center exists so that doesn't happen again. Free healthcare, mental health services, job training, whatever you need to stop being invisible. She raised the scissors. This is for everyone who's been overlooked, underestimated, told they don't matter. She cut the ribbon. It fell. Applause erupted. Not polite. Real. The kind that comes from people seeing possibility where there'd been nothing. The crowd flooded inside, exploring, touching, claiming space that was theirs now. Zafira followed slower, taking it in. Medical exam rooms, counseling offices, computer lab, all of it clean and new and functioning. All of it proof that invisible people could build visible change. A girl approached, 12 maybe, skinny, eyes too old for her age. Zafira recognized that look, had worn it herself once. You really used to live around here? Yeah. Few blocks over, behind the laundromat on Claiborne. My cousin works there now. The girl studied her. You got rich helping some gangster? I got opportunities helping someone who helped me back. Zafira knelt down, eye level. And I'm using those opportunities to help others. That's how it works. You get a hand up, you reach back. What if nobody reaches for you? Then you climb anyway, and when you get somewhere high enough, you build a ladder. The girl thought about that, nodded, ran off to join friends. Teresa appeared at Zafira's elbow. Media's here. Want to do interviews? No, this isn't about me. It's exactly about you. Then tell them the stories about what's possible, not about me specifically. Teresa smiled. You really don't like attention. I like results. Attention just gets in the way. They spent the morning greeting visitors, explaining services, watching people discover resources they didn't know existed. By noon, the center was full, loud, alive. Zafira slipped outside, needed air, needed space to process. Found a bench across the street, sat, watched people enter and exit the building bearing her mother's name. A car pulled up. Black, expensive, out of place in this neighborhood. But Zafira knew that car. Luca got out, wearing casual clothes for once, jeans, simple shirt, trying to blend. He sat beside her. Impressive turnout. People need help. You give it, they show up. You sound like someone who's done this before. First time building something. But I've needed help plenty. She gestured toward the center. Just paying forward. They sat in silence, watching. Finally Luca spoke. I'm leaving New York. Zafira's stomach dropped. What? Too much heat. Too many people watching. Time to step back. Let things cool down. Where? Italy. I have business there. Connections. Property. He looked at her. I'll be gone 6 months, maybe longer. What about your operations here? Marco handles things. You have my contact information. Anything happens, I'm one call away. He paused. But you don't need me anymore. You've got your own foundation, your own resources, your own power. It's not about need. I know. He cut her off gently. But you need to stand on your own now. Prove to yourself and everyone watching that what you built isn't dependent on me. He was right. She hated that he was right. When do you leave? Tonight? So soon. Too soon. What about the partnership, the contract? Still valid. We're business partners. That doesn't require proximity. He stood. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. He started toward his car. Stopped. Turned back. 6 years ago you saved my life. Not because you knew who I was, not because you expected payment, Just because someone needed help and you gave it. He moved closer. That's rare. In any world. And it's why I know you'll build something important here. Thank you. For everything? No. Thank you. He extended his hand. For reminding me that debt can become partnership, that survival can become purpose, that invisible people see more than anyone realizes. They shook hands. Final time. He got in his car, drove away. Zafira watched until the car disappeared, felt the weight of his absence immediately, but also felt something else. Freedom, real freedom. The kind that came from standing alone and knowing you could handle whatever came next. She returned to the center. Teresa met her at the door. Where'd you go? Just needed air. Well, come back inside. Someone wants to meet you. Zafira followed her in, to the medical wing where a woman waited. 50s. Doctor's coat. Kind face. Miss Riley. I'm Dr. Simmons. I wanted to thank you personally. She gestured around. I worked in emergency medicine for 20 years. Saw too many people die from treatable conditions because they couldn't afford care. This place... Her voice caught. This place saves lives. That's the goal. It's already working. We've seen 40 patients today, treated infections, wrote prescriptions, referred people to specialists, all free. Doctor, Simmons smiled. You built something beautiful. After she left, Zafira walked through the center alone. Watched nurses work, counselors talk, job trainers teach, saw possibility taking shape. Her phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then saw the message. Congratulations. Your mother would be proud. Andre. Still watching. Still protecting, even from distance. Another text. Different number. This one she recognized. Patricia Chen. Media requests still coming. Book deals now offering 7 figures. Decline. Zafira typed back. Decline. Not interested in selling story. Living it instead. Patricia's response came immediately. Perfect answer. You're learning. Evening came. The center stayed open. Late hours for people who worked days and needed care when they could get it. Zafira stayed too, greeting people, answering questions, being present. Around 8, she stepped outside again. Watched the sun set over the 9th ward, painting everything gold and orange, making even broken things look beautiful. A young woman approached, early 20s, carrying a baby, looking exhausted. Excuse me. Is this the free clinic? It is. We're open until 9. Relief flooded the woman's face. Thank God. My baby's been running fever. I can't afford emergency room. Been waiting all day. Go inside. Tell them you need immediate care. They'll take you right away. Really? Really? That's why we're here. The woman rushed inside. Zafira followed slower. Watched as nurses took the baby. Started assessment. Moved with urgency and care. This was why. Not the property. Not the portfolio. Not the power. This moment. This mother getting help. This baby getting care. This was what invisible people needed. Visibility when it mattered. Later that night, back at her apartment, Zafira stood at the window, overlooking a city that had tried to break her. Failed. Watched her rise instead. Her phone rang. Luca, you're not in New York anymore. Flight's boarding. Wanted to check in first. I'm good. I know. Just making sure you know. He paused. The center's going to change lives. Already is. That's the plan. Plans only work if people execute them. You're executing perfectly. Learn from someone who executes well. He laughed. Rare sound. Fair. Listen, I'm leaving but I'm not gone. You need anything, call. I'll move mountains. I know. Good. Now go build your empire. The right way. The way that matters. Luca? Yeah? Thank you. For seeing me when I was invisible. Silence on the other end. Then, you were never invisible. Just waiting for the right moment to be seen. He hung up. Zafira set down her phone. walked to her desk, pulled out a journal, started writing, not for publication, not for anyone else, just for her, recording the journey, from laundromats to foundations, from invisible to impossible to ignore. 6 years ago, she'd saved a stranger in an alley. Tonight, she'd opened a center that would save hundreds, maybe thousands. Full circle. She wrote until midnight, then closed the journal, stood at the window again, looked at her reflection, saw someone different than 6 years ago, stronger, wiser, free to build, to help, to matter, free to be visible on her own terms. Her phone buzzed one last time. Email notification from the foundation board she'd assembled. Subject, expansion proposal, 3 more locations. She opened it. Read, smiled. 3 more centers, different cities, same mission, making invisible people visible, giving them resources, dignity, choice. She typed a response. Approved. Let's change more lives. Sent it. Set down her phone. Whispered to the window. To her reflection. To the city beyond. I'm just getting started. Because that was the truth. The senator was gone. The building was rising. The foundation was operating. But the work wasn't finished. Would never be finished. Because invisible people existed everywhere, waiting for someone to see them, waiting for someone to help, waiting for permission to matter. And Zafira Riley, former Maid, former invisible, now impossible to ignore, was going to make sure they got that permission. One center at a time, one life at a time, one moment of visibility at a time, until invisible became impossible, until underestimated became undeniable, until quiet strength changed everything. She turned from the window. Tomorrow would bring challenges, obstacles, people who didn't want her to succeed. But tonight she'd celebrate. A mother got help, a baby got care, a neighborhood got hope, and Zafira Riley got proof that saving one life in an alley could create ripples that changed thousands. That was legacy. That was justice. That was quiet power making loud impact. And she was just getting started. If you stayed till the end, let Zafira know in the comments. I see you. Her story proves that invisible people change everything. Like, share, and subscribe. We have more powerful stories coming that will inspire you. Turn on notifications so you never miss one. Your support story could inspire someone else. Drop your thoughts below, and let's build a community of quiet strength together. Thank you for watching.